Hello Linux lovers, my name's Wimpy, welcome to my world. So continuing the work that I've been doing on the GPD Pocket 3, hopefully with a bit of luck, putting a bit of a bow on it this evening. We've made some good progress. I'm feeling pretty good about where the work is so far. I'm going to review the last couple of things that I've been working on, which have really revolved around the fractional scaling. That's something that I feel a device with an 8-inch display at 1920 by 1200 needs, just to make it a little bit more viewable. Welcome back, Linux Paul, welcome back. How are you doing? Are you drinking tea or something else at the moment? Hello C445, welcome back. How are you? Oh, you're new here. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for stopping by. So it's all about this little gizmo this evening. This is the GPD Pocket 3. For those of you that haven't seen it, we'll take a closer look at some of its features because I've done the hardware enablement on that. We'll also review some of the code, and we'll produce a new image. I'll put it through its paces. I'm expecting it to all work, and hopefully that will form the image that will go up onto the Ubuntu MATE.org website as a downloadable image for those people that have got or expecting a GPD Pocket 3 anytime soon, who want to run a little bit of Team Chelsea Cucumber on their new devices. So welcome. So Linux Paul, you've got some nice root ginger. Oh, root ginger and lemon herbal tea. So sophisticated. I'm slumming it with a pint of beer. So this has gone really well, actually. I've really been enjoying working with this device. So let's just break out the overhead camera. For those of you that haven't seen it, this is it. It's a small ultra oh goodness, my camera's gonna refuse to play nicely. Let's come on, there we go. Ultra mobile. Oh goodness, what's going on? I'm gonna replace you. My gosh, terrible. Maybe if I hold it up here it is. Anyway, so it's ultra mobile, small PC, what we probably used to call netbooks back in the day, and it's got a 2-in-1 design, so it can do that sort of thing to turn itself into a tablet type device. And GPD were good enough to send me a stylus, so it's all about this articulating screen today, and the fact that this device, I discovered, has accelerometers in it. So it's about how I enabled the accelerometer support so that as you tilt and pivot this thing, hopefully the screen orientates itself sensibly. And also taking not a very detailed look, not an artist, but this features into the whole screen rotation stuff. So that's what we're looking at. And then new image, we'll test it, make sure it works. There's only one thing I want to make sure works correctly. It's the one thing I'm not sure I've tested. It's like I know it works, but it's like I haven't tested it during the install stage. And if all that checks out, then I think that will mean that maybe sometime tomorrow an image will go up on the Ubuntu MATE website, and people that are interested will be able to download this thing. So, welcome back. Gosh, what's going on? What's going on here? So, hello Takov, welcome back. Hello Big Pod, how are you? Oh, Linux Paul says you have drinking beer. Oh, you have work in the morning, so you would be drinking beer otherwise. Fair enough. Yeah, so when I do, oh, hello, I've forgotten to switch back. When I do these streams, it's a moment of relaxation for me. So pint of beer, just to wet the whistle, so to speak. Hi Peacemaker, how you doing? Yes, so Peacemaker points out, why is my Why is my featured chat not working? Let's try a reload over here, see if we can get this to work. Oh, it's the wrong account. One moment, I just need to click a thing. Here we go. Because Peacemaker makes a good point. What the heck are we looking at here? What's going on today? Well, anyway, Peacemaker says, in my first stream about the GPD, I said the stylus was a bit off compared to, you know, touching with your finger. And that was true at the time, but it is no longer true. That was some kind of sort of resolution drift caused by having it plugged into the external HDMI at the same time. I haven't tried to fix that because I've isolated what the cause was, and I feel like if you're using the stylus, you're not going to be like have a big screen connected to it. So I don't know if I can reproduce it. Maybe we'll have a go later and see if we can, but I don't see that as a showstopper. So, suspend is sorted. What else did we have? The grub situation, no movement there. I don't know how to fix it. I'm of the opinion it can't be fixed unless you get into some pretty funky DMI patching in the early bootloader process. That's not something I wish to undertake and risk getting things wrong on people's machines. But all the other stuff is working very nicely. Hello, Robot Laser Party. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for stopping by. Oh, so you're running Ubuntu. Good. We approve. You're among friends. No particular reason. Love your videos. Oh, well, thank you. Well, not so much vids, but live streams. It's almost exclusively live streams, but thank you for stopping by. So, I think we're going to get into it. So, for regular viewers here, so I wrote an integration for this gizmo, which is the accelerometer integration so that the screen rotates. But more importantly, when the screen rotates, it also applies the correct transforms to the digitizers for the touchscreen and the stylus. And the stylus has two modes of operation, one when it's drawing and one when it's erasing. And it rotates those as well, so that, you know, regardless of which way up it is, it responds accordingly. So that's something I've written. I think it was last night. It's all a bit of a blur, but I wrote that last night. Going to put it out there. People here who are regulars, they know what my favourite implementation in air quotes language has been of late. So for those of you that are here, what language did I use to implement that? I'll give you a moment to have your hard reckon as to what language I used to do this little bit of integration. Linux Paul says a bad language. That's too vague. I think you need to be more specific. So Damp Sparks suggests Bash. So I mean, that's a keen guess. It's a keen guess. There's certainly a lot of Bash around these parts. Anyone got any other options? We'll take a look in just a moment. We'll take a look at two things in particular, and we'll hook it up to. I've got the HDMI cables down here again, so we'll hook this thing up and we'll actually take a look. Although actually on the HDMI, will it look okay? It might do. Well, that'll be an interesting test in itself, actually. So, well, these are interesting guesses, but I heard somebody once refer to me quite recently, good friend of mine. The witty programmer says assembly. Hey, welcome to the stream. Thank you for stopping by. So Dan Sparks says Bash has worked for them for the last 20 years for all the wrong sorts of things, of course. Bash is remarkably versatile, which is why you see me using it so regularly. It's a very quick way to prototype things. But let's bring up the code editor. So no, not bash on this occasion. In fact, totally the other way. It is implemented in C. So here we go. So this is it. This is the UMPC display rotate program. So this is implemented in C for several reasons. The first reason is this is something I learned not even whilst I was working at Canonical, but when I was interviewed prior to joining Canonical. There was a whole question about writing long-running programs, and the correct answer was write those in C, and that was because there was a focus within the desktop team at Canonical to write things in C for battery endurance reasons, where for a long time it had been, Python had been sort of a popular choice. So this is a long-running process in that it starts and it runs basically the whole time the system is up. So that was one of the reasons why I've written this in C. And the other is in the copyright header, there is an existing implementation of how to do screen rotation based on accelerometer IIO sensors. So, given that there was an existing implementation in C, just to be clear, I did find one in Bash and I did find another one in Python. The temptation to write this in Bash was strong, but I avoided it. I went with C. It's a long-running process. It should minimize, battery impact, as opposed to like having a Python interpreter, constantly polling. So this is it. We've got some defines here for the orientations, an array of the orientations. These are XR and R orientation strings. And then these are the transformations for the touch digitizers. So they correspond to these orientations up here. Then here are the devices that this supports. So obviously I was targeting the GPD Pocket 3, which is those three there. This first one being the touchscreen itself. These next two being the stylus, which is this gizmo, although not specifically this pen, but any stylus that supports the protocol of this device. And then I also have, where did I put it? Over here. I didn't realize it, but I bought this on a crowdfunder some years ago. This was my previous favorite sort of ultra mobile PC. And this is the Topjoy Falcon. And this also has a flip it over arrangement. And I didn't realize this had accelerometers in it. But it does. And in fact, maybe if I use the overhead screen here, we can see this at play. So here is, oh, you can't see, it's a bit overexposed on the camera, but if I tilt that up, hopefully you'll see this is the same program at play here on this device. So there we go. So that's the same program running on this as well. So it supports both these two devices, both of which I make Ubuntu MATE images for. So, that was handy to have two devices to test it on. So, Linux Pool suggests I could have used Go. I think Go is certainly a language I want to do more with. And then currently only one screen type is supported, which is the internal panels of both the Pocket 3 and the Topjoy Falcon. So this is where sort of the magic happens there. This is the implementation I took from the Nokia sensor code that I found, and this is what calculates those 3 accelerometer readings to tell the orientation of the device and when it's time to rotate, or rather when it's time to signal that rotation of the screen should happen. So this is sort of the main algorithm, if you like, and I could say I understand it, but I don't. I just look, I wrote my own very simple one, which basically just used an averaging system. But the problem with that is that it would rotate, and then it would rotate. So it was always on the edge, whereas this knows, it basically takes gravity into account, and it knows how far you've tilted back and the other way. So it's quite a neat solution. Then we've got a function here that actually issues the rotation to the touch devices, then rotation to the screens themselves, reading from the IIO sensors, which I've simplified because I've just made the assumption I'm always going to be reading floats. This I need to work on. That device is hard-coded because this is the same device path for both devices, and this is the main routine. It's very, very simple. These are my three variables, X, Y, and Z, and the scaling factor. Get the accelerometer path. Can we read that accelerometer? Initially, we rotate the touch devices because it might be that the touch devices are not orientated based on the initial rotation of the device itself. So we always do that. Get the scaling factor, which we only need to do once, and then loop forever, getting those three coordinates, seeing if the orientation has changed, and if it has, rotate the device. Otherwise, just wait a little while. So, actual C. I'm sure you're all very disappointed that this is not written in written in Bash. See, I like to watch it, but I don't like to write it. So, whilst I was writing this, it's the first time I've written a whole cloth program for a long time in C. I've been writing patches and small changes to existing C, but I don't write new stuff in C. So this was a bit of an adventure, and there were bits of it I really enjoyed, actually. Lots of it I really enjoyed, except for everything to do with string manipulation, which is a hateful, hateful, hateful experience. And I am never going to write a new program in C ever again, because it is rare to not need to do sort of decent string manipulation, and there are better languages for that, even if you want something relatively low level. Although if you look at this, it really is not. This is not a low level program by any means. So next time I think I'll use it as an opportunity to learn some Go. So Linux Paul says he wishes he knew a programming language. Well, you know, it swings and roundabouts. So that's the program for that. So I think what we'll do is we'll grab the HDMI, we'll run that into here, and is this on? I can't remember. I don't know if it's on. No, it's not on yet. So we'll power this one up, and we'll put the the Vulkan to one side. So there's one other thing that we've done here, and I think we'll only see it here, although if the camera would just take a moment to focus. So the first is, you probably can't make this out on the camera here, but the display manager, I have set that to a high DPI resolution, even though it doesn't need it, and that's because all of the features of the login screen will scale up to that resolution just fine, and it makes everything much more readable. So I'll type in my password, which is test, by the way, and we'll log in, and then hopefully, yeah, I thought this would go a bit wonky. I need to think about this. So this is the first interesting thing, is that what I've done here is I've logged in, and if I go to the capture view, like so,
Thank you for the follow, Modder Mario.
Hello, Modder Mario. Welcome to the stream, and thank you for the follow. So I think what we'll do is we'll just bring... Oh, that's the wrong thing entirely. We'll just bring up the display preferences.
Thank you for the follow R0 Adside.
Hi, Roadside. What on earth? My speaking robot there didn't quite get that right, but welcome to the stream. So if we just take a look at the displays and we align these, because this is one of these weird things where the displays won't align correctly. So that should be done. We'll apply that. So keep this configuration. So this is the primary down here. Okay, this is working. Okay, so what you're looking at on screen is the HDMI connection. And if I drag this over, you'll see that I was just configuring that. And the HDMI is at 1:1 scaling. So it is a 1080p output. And the internal panel, however, this is fractionally scaled. There we go. This is fractionally scaled at about 66% of the actual panel resolution. And that's because this 8-inch screen at 1920 by 1200 is tiny. It's very small. And we can actually demonstrate how that works. So if I bring this over, in fact, I don't need to use the mouse at all. I've got this display scaler app in air quotes, which I've just modified, but it's not on this version yet. If I run this, this will rescale everything to 1:1 scaling. And as you can see, it's quite tiny. Over here, look, this is the system tray icons, and over here is the menu. And if we run that again, display, and run it again, this should reintroduce that 66% scaling, which to my eyes is it basically works out that the equivalent sort of resolution, if you like, is like 1280 by 800 in this mode, and that makes everything very readable and useful, as opposed to just too small to read. So we've got that implemented, although I've got a better solution. You will have noticed that the wallpaper didn't resize correctly, and I think I found a fix for that, which is in the new version. So those are like the two things that I think finish this off. So the other thing that I demonstrated on the first stream is that if I was to close the laptop and let it go to sleep, so I'm just looking, okay, and then opened the thing, it wouldn't wake up. So let's see if this is fixed now. Here we go. Oh, is it going to wake up? No way. Oh, I've removed it on this test image. I have actually fixed this. I promise. We'll test this again when we put the new image on in a moment. I actually forgot that I turned it off on this one. Bother. I'm going to have to hard reset this. So, Roadside says, does the GPD have an x86 CPU? Yes, it does. It has an Intel 11th Gen i7, some string of numbers, but it's a 4-core, 8-thread iGPU with Intel Iris Xe IGP with 96 compute units. And I've been very happy with the performance. I've been extremely happy with the fact I haven't had any excessive fan noise or anything like that. And the battery endurance has been surprisingly good. The other thing that I've particularly enjoyed is that C program that I flashed up earlier. I wrote on this keyboard, and I was perfectly comfortable doing so. When you consider the number of, in air quotes, special characters in C, they are scattered, around in unusual places, quotes, commas, and what have you down here, and you know, a smattering up here, but once you get familiar with where they are, actually everything's a decent size, easy to hit, not too unusually placed. I really got on well with it. I quite enjoyed it. So the M-Dog Show says it's too small. Too small for what? It's meant to be small, that's the whole point. Right then, so let's think. Are those the main things? I think they are, since I did the first 2 streams. So I'm obviously, this one I'm just doing 2110. I'm not going to do an LTS version. We'll get this release done, and then come April we'll do a 2204 image for this, and then we'll have the whole lineup on the new LTS in April. So I think that's all I need for now. So I think what we'll do is we'll grab this and we'll generate a new image, install the device, wipe everything, test that the new bits work okay, and if they do, I think that will be ready to go up, and that will be a download image probably on Friday. Got a bit of a busy day tomorrow, so probably Friday. Although technically I could put the download up quite quickly, so maybe we'll do that. So Roadside says, did you have to do any optimizations for the power management for this specific device? No. I did take a look at sort of the power envelope and the TDP. You can configure the TDP through the BIOS, which is quite nice. I haven't messed with that. I've left that all at defaults. I've been very happy with the performance and battery endurance. I looked at tuning TLP, but I didn't want to make that change by default. Obviously you can like cap the performance threshold and run it in like a power endurance configuration if you really want to extend the battery life. But I don't feel like that's a decision for me to make and impose on other people. You know whether you want more power because you want to use it for mobile gaming, or you want to consume less power because you care about battery endurance and sort of on-the-go longevity. So I'm going to leave that as a decision for people to make for themselves. But no, I didn't have to tune it. Unlike some of the others, like one thing that I've had to look at in the past is like the fan profile. I haven't heard the fan in this. I'm not saying it didn't get warm. I've done things where it's got warm and the fan has kicked up, and you know, I can feel the warm air evacuating out of the, you know, the exhaust ports at the back here, but that's like within reasonable, you know, to touch. I don't have, you know, heat testing, you know, temperature measurement equipment. It all seems perfectly reasonable. It doesn't seem like it's baking hot or anything like that. But most importantly, the fan noise is perfectly acceptable, as in I don't think you'll ever hear it, unlike some of the other devices they've made in the past where the fans really had to run pretty hard in order to keep the thermals in check. So I was quite surprised by that, because this is actually quite a decent CPU and IGP combination. It's got some decent performance, something I'll look at in another stream. I actually want to run some games on it. I'm not going to do that tonight, but I'll run some games on it in another stream, and we'll see, you know, how the performance stands up, and also play with those additional modules, in particular the KVM module. So this is the last stream to sort of do the device enablement, and then we'll move on to playing with the other bits and pieces. It's not cheap, you know. I am very thankful that GPD were good enough to send this to me so I could work on it, because it's not cheap. But for what it's worth, I think it's the best device they've made so far. It's certainly my favourite of the ones they've made, and they are improving with each new device. But this has got the thing about this device is that I really like is this modular port design. Well, it's a single port, but this comes with USB-C by default. You can unscrew these and out this comes, and there's a serial port module, and the real killer is the KVM module, which has got HDMI in and USB-C in, so you can connect this up to other devices, and then its screen, keyboard and trackpad will then be the devices that you control whatever you plugged into it. For example, a Raspberry Pi or a KVM console in a data center. And I think that is pretty great. There's a time in the past working in data centers I would have loved that, but actually for live streaming I think it's kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to playing with it from that point of view. So I think what we'll do then is we'll head over here and we'll spit out a new image and we'll stick it on the device. So not the Top Joy, oh Volcom, I spelled that wrong. It's 2110 and it's the GPD Pocket 3. So this will generate a new image if I put that in properly. There we go. So this will take but a minute. So what this does is this takes the existing Ubuntu MATE ISO, and then as you can see here, injects a bunch of configuration specific to this device. So out of the box it works. If you're not familiar with GPD and other ultra mobile PCs, by default this is like a repurposed tablet display, and it's orientated 90 degrees the wrong way. Hello Yannick, welcome back. How are you today? So that's a bit of a faff. So this applies all of those tweaks and configurations so that from the install and first use you don't have to mess around with any of that stuff. It's all just configured and ready to go. So this shouldn't take long. In fact, we're nearly done. It's already recreated the Squash FS file system, and it's generated a new ISO image. So there we go. So that will be this image here that we've just reproduced. There we go. About 1 minute ago. So we'll bring up the File Explorer. Is that on the right display? It is. Well, it's a bit big, isn't it? Let's do that. There we go, a bit smaller. And that's the image we care about. I've plugged that in, so we should just be able to right click on that and say open with the image writer. Choose the Corsair GTX. There we go. So it's good you're late, Yannick. You missed the bit where I did my C programming. It was amazing. I was writing macros and all sorts. It was a tour de force of C excellence. You missed that, unfortunately. It doesn't matter though. When you join the next stream, I'll be back to doing the usual thing with shell scripts.
Thank you for the follow, Rob Collette 76.
Hello, Rob. Thank you very much for stopping by and welcome to the stream, and congratulations, you've just tipped us over the current follower goal. So very good. So Yannick, it might sound like I'm pulling your leg, but here it is. I'm not even lying. I did indeed write a C program to do the accelerometer reading and handle the screen rotation and all the rest of it. And I did a very quick summary. But there you go. I know it's a break from tradition. I promise it won't happen again. And we're back to shell scripts for everything. But that's in the Git repo, and I shared that with the GPD community on Reddit earlier because I think that's probably something that other people will want to benefit from. Right, so that image is written onto the cards, onto the USB stick. So let's get rid of this. Shell scripts, I tell you what, unless it can't be done in a shell script will do just fine. It's just love some bash programming. In fact, I need to break out ANSI alien attack. I want to make a very minor change, but also I want to play it again. So I might be doing that on a stream soon. So what we're doing here is we're plugging in this. So we've got the GPD Pocket 3 here. That's the USB drive plugged into HDMI. We'll turn it on. We'll mash the magic button to make the boot menu appear, and we'll boot off the internal off the USB drive. And whilst that comes up, we'll move over to here, and at some point we'll see the display move over. Oh, that's something else actually. I missed it here, but oh. Well, that's completely wrong. What's going on there? Not only... Well, that's really weird. Okay. What I'm looking at is something that isn't rotated at all. Well, that is odd, because this has been working fine. Why has that not initialized in the correct orientation this time, I wonder? I wonder what's caused that. That's weird. So I'm going to have a little think about that, because I was not expecting that at all. So, MDog says, I love the different serial devices you can get for the back of it. Yeah, I mean, if you're I think I said in the first stream about this device, if you're a network admin, that's a pretty compelling feature, I think. So let's turn that on again. Oh, we need to mash some keys. There we go. So I'm not expecting grub to be rotated, because that's simply, well, it's doable, but not something I'm going to undertake. It's not important enough. Well, this is weird. That is really strange. Why would that not be rotated? So I'm going to... Well, first of all, the other thing I'm curious about is why, if I go to this view, the capture device isn't actually hooked up either. Just go back here. Let's have a little look at what we did here. This is actually the first time this has not worked, which is somewhat alarming. GPD Pocket 3 to track point touch rules. Okay. Schema. Grub. It's almost like none of those changes were made. So, rather confusingly, I'm just going to take a look on. So I'm just driving the device sideways on. Let's make that bigger and do that. Well, they're in there. So those rules are present. Okay. So that's the touch stuff. So the touched stuff has been rotated. So that implies that maybe I've introduced an incompatibility in the X configuration. We've got a new track point, an Intel, and the monitor. So cat. This is rather awkward on my side. Okay. Yeah, that looks correct. Let's actually rotate it by hand. Oh. Failed. Invalid attribute. Really? Right, okay. Welcome to How to Break Ubuntu MATE for the GPD Pocket in 20 seconds. Which of you cheeky bloody moderators did that? Right, okay. So Roadside says, I've heard Rust is gaining a lot of popularity for this kind of stuff. Well, for this kind of stuff, there is certainly growing popularity for Rust. And there's definitely a place for Rust. And it's a pretty cool language, that's for sure. Yeah, sort of systems, low-level system stuff, it's definitely good. If that GPD Pocket had a Swiss keyboard, I'd be very much consider buying one. Well, I was looking at the framework laptops, obviously full-size laptops earlier. They're now taking pre-orders for Europe. They don't have Swiss, but they do have French and German. One of those is probably close enough, I would think, depending on where in Switzerland you are. C445I says, silly question, are you doing all this streaming on Ubuntu MATE? Yes, I am. Let's go here. Let's bring up this. Ooh. There we go. That's the system monitor. As you can see, I'm running 2110. Ubuntu MATE 2110. I only do my streaming on Ubuntu MATE. On Linux generally. So, what a curious situation. I wonder, you know what I think? No, I'm wrong. I was hoping I'd clicked on the wrong image. No, I've proven it's the right image because... So, there's no two ways about it. I'm going to actually have to go and check and make sure I haven't broken this in some fundamental way. Because I am genuinely confused. So this is the shell script. That's it. We're back to familiar territory. That actually does the respin. So this is the thing that injects data. And these these are all of the bits that it stuffs in, and all of those have got the correct prefixes. This has worked, so why has this stopped working? So, German would be closest, says Yannick. Oh, there we go. So, yeah, I was looking at those framework laptops. I'm very tempted. In fact, they've got the same CPU in them that this Pocket 3 has. They're a bit expensive, though. But for a sort of modular design laptop, I'm very tempted. And I don't need to go all in because I have the RAM and SSDs, so and I don't need the Windows operating system, so I can save some money there. Very confused. It's the actual... So there's one thing that handles the rotation of the screen, which is... no, 40 is it? GPD Pocket is Pocket 3. So this is what actually rotates the screen itself, and that is not corrupt. That's correct. So and also it wouldn't allow me to, because the display server was running in the root context. Okay, so I could go back and let's boot this again. I want to make sure I can rotate the display. I'm tempted to make another image because it's like, before I try and debug this, I'm gonna make sure I've turned it on properly, if you know what I mean. So, Roadside Chair says check the X server logs. Yeah, we can totally do that. Now I'm confused. Because it's correctly orientated. What? How? Haven't changed anything, have I? I've not plugged anything new in. Well, that is strange. But there it is. So actually what I'm going to do is, I know you can't see all of this in very... In fact, can I? Let's... there we go. I think you can make out that there's, you know, an installer there. So you can see it's correctly orientated now. So I'm going to choose the try Ubuntu MATE, because what I expect to see is this to scale, because in this live session it should have the screen scaler, and there it is. Yeah, and I'm fine that it's all a bit wonky because there's two displays and they're offset from one another, but I can see that that's correct. So we should be able to run this one and straighten that out and make that not so cumbersome. So let's apply that. There we go. Well, that was odd. So you can now see it is correctly orientated and it is scaled, even though on this screen it's not, which is exactly what I'm intending to see. So how peculiar. I wonder I wonder why that was. I am very confused. I'll chalk that up as something to investigate a little bit, but actually, how odd. So, was the screen slightly rotated, says Phil. Oh, Phil. That's actually not a bad shout. It could have been because, you know, this does, you know, move. It's possible. It's possible. I'm not sure that that's what it is, but it's possible. Anyway, we will let that do. We'll start the install now. Oh, so something I said in the first stream is I wasn't sure what the touch and gesture support was like. Turns out it's very good. And one thing that I did implement, let's just check the capture view. No, there's nothing there. Okay. Something I did implement is although you can do 2-finger scrolling. Oh, I'm on the right view, so you can't make it out very well, but you can do 2-finger scrolling. But because the touchpad's quite small, I added the ability to hold down the middle mouse button and do single finger scrolling up and down as scroll wheel emulation, which I found to be easier to perform on this than 2-finger scrolling because of the, you know, limited width of the touchpad. Right, well, we'll go through the install process despite that slightly unusual stuff. And what I think we'll do is we'll grab you, take you over there, push this, and then we can do the install actually on the capture screen, because that's a little bit easier to follow what's going on. So, using XR and R, I've been able to fractionally scale the internal panel on the GPD Pocket, but leave the external monitor, which in this case happens to be a capture device, but you know, essentially, I'm not. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll plug Ethernet in. We'll plug Ethernet in. Wi-Fi does work. We've proven that many times. That works just fine. So we will plug the Ethernet in there. And in fact, something that might be worth looking at, wonder if this is going to work in the live session. It's a little bit of a handful now. I've got 3 cables hanging off it, but if we pick this up in the live session, that screen rotating tool should be running. So if I do this, there we go. We can see that it is actually flipping the screen accordingly. I don't know if I can do that way very easily. Yeah, I can. But that way should work. Should be easier to demonstrate. Oh, what have I done to it? I think it doesn't like me yanking that HDMI cable around. I'll stop doing that for now. We'll do that when it's disconnected from all of its tethers a bit later. So hopefully now that should be connected. It is. I can see on this screen here. So we'll go through an install. Right then. So Roadside says it's getting different inputs depending on the way the screen is orientated when you first launch it. So the way that the screen rotator works is it knows that this orientation, if I just zoom out a little bit now because it's a bit tight, it knows that this orientation is most likely to be the default. So it initializes everything in this orientation and only looks for changes from this orientation. But what it always does is it always initializes the touch device rotation, or the transforms, relative to this position. So it should be that the touch, in fact, let's try it. Let's no, touch is off as well. Something's not right here. I am going to have to dig into this because this is not correct. This has been working reliably. Oh, yeah, did you see that? That actually activated a button push that I was nowhere near then. So we're going to have to do this without all the stuff plugged in later, because we've got the HDMI plugged in, and I know for a fact when HDMI is plugged in, the touch coordinate projection is wrong. And that can't be overcome because the way it works is, as far as X is configured, this is one display carved up on different screens. And so consequently the touch is out. And that's a limitation of X. You can't overcome that. If I was to disconnect this, everything that I touch on this screen would be correct. Anyway, but there's that I can't overcome. Can't overcome that limitation. Right, let's do a normal install. Where's the mouse point? Here it is. So I wonder why it wasn't orientated correctly. I think Phil might be onto something there. I'll try and reproduce that a couple of times later. So, Cypheric says, was the HDMI connected at the time, detecting that first and resizing? Well, I have been almost exclusive, one stream at least, I've almost been exclusively connecting this over HDMI and not had an issue with it being connected over HDMI. So it's possible. It's possible that the device enumeration happened in a different order on that occasion, and that's why things were incorrect. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to rule it out. It's entirely possible. I think I'll have to do a couple of test installs later with no HDMI and have a little poke around and just make sure everything's doing what I expect it to do. So we'll just go through this for the moment and we'll assume that everything else is going to be fine. My password is test, by the way. Okay. So I'm curious to know, I asked this the other day, there's a few slightly different crowd in. Are there any GPD owners of past devices in the chat? If so, which one do you have? Hello. Well, look at that. Hello, Jupiter Broadcasting. Good evening. Who's driving the Jupiter Broadcasting Twitch channel this evening? Is that Chris or Wes or somebody else? Hello, Chris. Welcome. Thanks very much. So, we did just have a little bit of an issue there, but this is the device on the desk here, and once it's installed again, I'll actually run through what I've been working on. But what I've been working on is the accelerometer reading in this device. So as you tilt and flip the device, the screen and what have you rotates, and you may not be able to make it out here, but this is the internal panel, and this is at a 66% fractional scale, so that on this 8-inch screen at 1920 by 1200, this is a usable resolution, whereas it only scales the internal panel. This is essentially the HDMI out, which is connected to my capture device, and this is running at a 1:1 scaling at 1080p. So we've got fractional scaling per screen, or rather just on the internal panel, which I think you know, is the ideal way to do things. So Damp Spark says, is the BIOS favoring HDMI output boot and reporting? So there are no options to indicate that in the BIOS. There's nothing to configure how it does that. I would be speculating if I were to suggest what it might be doing. It's entirely possible that it did enumerate the display devices in a different order, resulting in the screen orientation not being correct. But that doesn't make sense either, because the screen configuration is device specific and specifically for the internal panel here, so it should always be applying that rotation. So maybe there was a race condition in the way that X came up and it just didn't read that configuration properly. I'm gonna have to try and reproduce this later and see if I can make it happen again, and if so, the Xorg logs should provide the answer to the conundrum there. That is the first time I've seen it, and I think that most people are not going to be doing the install connected over HDMI to, you know, a capture device. So I'll test it in a more conventional configuration later and just satisfy myself that was a freak one-off, and I'll try and identify why. But I'm not going to do it on stream, because otherwise you're just going to be looking at, you know, a not very interesting stream as I, you know, sit there with it not connected. Right, okay, so Cypheric says that's what you were thinking. Okay. As I have the odd similar thing on PC with VGA. Okay, interesting. DVI and HDMI. Upon reboot, HDMI takes over against the other ports rather than my expected DVI as the primary screen. Interesting. Okay. Well, like I say, first time I've seen that. I think this is the third time I've streamed in this way with this device. So not statistically conclusive numbers, but that's interesting. I'll have to test. And C445i says great background music. So the music is from Stream Beats. It's copyright free music made by streamers for streamers. So this is copyright safe music, and you even get a license for free. Doesn't cost anything. The way they make their money is I'm actually playing this through Spotify, and they get per track, you know, payment through Spotify. So that's how they sort of fund themselves, and I think they have a similar arrangement with Amazon Music and iTunes, so you can use a number of different music services to play their stuff, but from the streamer's point of view, it is free, and there are thousands of tracks. In fact, I'll tell you what we could do. We could go over here. Let's switch to a different genre. Let's try this one. I've made a little jukebox. So there we go. Yeah, it's good stuff. So streambeats.com is where you want to go. It's the brainchild of Harris Heller. I am working on an interactive jukebox so that people in the stream can actually choose what to play. Right, here we go. So the install's done. So we're going to hit restart. We'll go to the overhead view. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to yank out that. So now we're just connected over Ethernet. And we'll zoom out here because we don't need that so tight now. There we go. Did I fix it? Yes, Yannick. You're missing all the good stuff this evening. It was amazing. I got GDB connected up to Xorg. We were looking at the registers, did some stack analysis, found the root cause of the problem, fixed it. It was amazing. It was top-notch debugging. Or I turned it off and on again. It was one of those two things. You'll have to watch the VOD back to figure it out for yourself. Hey, Big Pod. Right then. Big Pod and I were in our first work meeting together today. It was very exciting. Right then, so here comes the device. So, this is doing the right thing. So the first thing is the display manager is high DPI scaled. So this means that all of the status indicators and the display is all very readable, which is what I expect. The password is test, by the way. So we'll log in. We should see it rescale. We should see this notification tells us that fractional scaling is enabled, and we can see that the scaling is in effect. I'm going to send the telemetry. So that is out. That is not aligned. I wonder if I do this and then do this, if that is now. It's not. The touch orientation is off. So where it's absolutely out. Okay, so I've got an idea about this. So we'll live debug this one. So I have a theory. So let's plug in the HDMI. Let's see if this works. Let's go to the capture view. That moves. Okay, so that's interesting in itself. We'll move the displays. Where are they? Monitor preferences. Okay, so let's just arrange these accordingly. Set that as primary, apply those. Okay. Keep this configuration, or just apply this system wide. Okay. So I'll just come over to there. Let's do that. Right. Etsy udev rules.d. So this is the only thing I can think of that's throwing things out. And it's this touch rules here. So we'll just move that to one side, because what's happening is the screen rotator is polling all the time, and I think that maybe that udev rules is like a race condition between that and the screen rotator. So that was the wrong password, because my password is test, by the way. So I've just moved that. I didn't mean to do device. Sorry, OCD demands that I actually correctly name that now. Oh goodness, it'd be good if we could type. There we go. It's not one thing, it's the other. Right then, let's do that. There we go. So we'll unceremoniously just do a reboot. We will unplug the HDMI. And we'll see now if, when this comes up, is the touch correctly orientated? That's the question. Yes, it is. There we go. Okay. That is the root cause identified. So I am not going to be making a final image this evening because I'm going to have to change how this initialization works. So I think what we'll do is, instead of using UDEV on these devices with accelerometers, we will rely on the screen rotator to do its thing, but we'll set an initial orientation through the display server configuration, because that will be applied once and then the screen rotator can take over. So let's just make sure this screen rotation stuff is working correctly. So if I tilt the screen that way, we should now see, yeah, the top panel here, bottom panel here, so that's correctly orientated. And we'll go this way. And there we go, that has orientated the correct way. And if I go and drag this, there we go, that has picked up the correct stuff. So it was that UDEV rule, which will have been why the live session was busted as well. So mystery solved. I know how to fix that. So we will fix that. I will fix that later. But I know what the problem is now. See you, Gannick. Thank you for stopping by. Right, okay, that's good. So what else? So the other thing I tried earlier, which didn't work, which I was a little bit concerned about, was the suspend and resume. So I'm going to try that now, because that should work. So I should be able to close the lid, wait for it to put itself to sleep, and open, and the display should come back on. Yes, there we go. So that is working. Good. And I should, yeah, the Wi-Fi came back, and I should be able to send my telemetry, and that should work too. Great, okay. Because that was something we fixed, or I fixed a couple of days ago. But it was one of the things that we found wasn't working. So it's just that monitor stuff. Okay, that's been useful. I've actually, you know, by going through the steps, we found a genuine bug there that can get fixed. So what we'll do is we'll do an update and an upgrade. We can probably plug the HDMI in for this. So this is just standard stuff, because what we're testing here is that the way that these configurations are applied, some of them need to be acted on by the boot manager. So by doing a kernel upgrade, we are making sure that our configuration changes are persistent across system upgrades. So we will let this upgrade happen, and we should see that everything continues to work correctly now that we've moved, now we've moved that UDEV rule to one side. Okay, oh, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. That's good. So I know we'll configure the display server, because ultimately the screen rotator is dynamically live changing the display server configuration. So having the display server set default and then the screen rotator taking over, I think will be fine. What's happening is UDEV and the screen rotator were actually fighting one another, and both changing things at the same time.
Thank you for the follow, R0DNIX.
Hello Rodnix, thanks very much for the follow. Welcome to the stream. So we're just doing an upgrade. It shouldn't take too long. This is just to make sure that all the configuration that we have here is persistent between system upgrades, in particular across kernel upgrades, because that's where initial RAM disk gets rebuilt and the bootloader gets its configuration regenerated. So we want to make sure that all of our customizations persist. I think this should all work. I'm not expecting any breakage, he says, desperately looking around for a piece of wood.
Thank you for the follow, Malphabeth.
Malphabeth, thanks very much for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Right, okay. Looking good. Taking a bit of time. So here we go. It's generating the initial RAM disk at the moment. This is a fairly expensive operation. Right, okay. I'm pleased about that. I mean, as confusing as that was, I'm glad we've stumbled into that. This is why I was doing this one. It's awful if you produce an image and then you put it out there and it's very obviously broken for people. That's a pretty miserable situation, so I'm glad we've discovered this. What other interesting devices are people either ordered, pre-ordered, or looking forward to ordering in the year ahead? You know, obviously I'm tinkering around with this GPD device. Anyone else looking at anything? I was looking at the framework laptops a little bit earlier, doing a little bit of fantasy shopping. Didn't buy anything, but you know, they're very tempting, I think. Anyone else looking at any nifty devices for the year ahead? Ideally Linux powered or modified to run Linux. Okay, all of that's working as well now, so I'll start using that again. So, Cypheric says, my gosh, why is nothing, literally nothing working? Are you going to pop up over here? No. Right, okay, so Cypheric says, had a B-Link GTR Pro NUC. Oh, okay. Nice. Hey, Malfeth says they've got waiting for the Pine e-reader. I didn't know that they were making such a thing. So is this like a Nook type device or a Kindle? So we'll just do a quick and dirty reboot. We'll leave the HDMI plugged in this time, just see what happens, because you know, interesting failure conditions abound. So you can see what I can see at the moment. So this has come up with the display manager. In fact, if I move to the capture window, I'm going to move the mouse over, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. So that works. So that's correct that the display manager is scaled, because the display manager scaling is the whole thing, not per device, unlike the way I've done the scaling on the desktop, which is only to scale the internal panel. So fractional scaling is in place on the panel, so that's all stayed. And I suppose the trick is, if I move this back, don't worry about that bug, I know about that, it's fixed. If I go to the overhead view, I should be able to... No. I wonder... Oh, it's the HDMI again, isn't it? Okay. I keep making this mistake. with the HDMI connected. Okay, that's fine. Right, okay. So configuration persisted across reboot. That's fine. And Malfest says, what is it? A NUC? Oh, and Cypheric is answering that. I've got a sort of a NUC. I'll show you. Very dusty. It's very dusty because it's been sat on the shelf, but it's this sort of thing. So it's a square thing. There's your ports on the back. and it's a small form factor PC. This one's not a NUC, as you can see. This is a Gigabyte Bricks, but it's the same concept. And in fact, I have some bigger ones behind me here. So, Malphabeth says it's a Kindle type. Okay, cool. That's nifty. What else have Pine been up to recently? I haven't heard much from them. Is the e-reader their latest thing, or is there anything else that they're up to? Right, okay. So, I suppose I should close this, because we know that this configuration was not at fault. I'm going to disconnect that, close the thing down, unplug that. So, let's I'm just going to reboot this with no HDMI attached. I want to be sure that everything works correctly with no external displays attached. They're still talking about the Pine phone, but not much. I saw that there's some people getting increasingly dismayed with Purism and Libra phone, because it still hasn't. What is it now? It's 2022. They did that crowdfunding in 2017, so it's 4.5 years, I think, since they did their crowdfunding, and there's still people that don't have their phones. That's pretty rubbish. It was a 2-year-old design when they did the crowdfunder. So, MDog says, I'm waiting on a Xilinx U30 Alveo card. Is this a super high performance intelligent network interface card? Is that what you're describing there? Right, let's see. So, I've just booted this up again, but there's nothing attached to it now. So, the first thing is, does the screen rotation work? Yes, it does. I'm on the edge of the on the threshold there, so that one works. Can I go this way? Let's see. Does that work? Yeah, that's flipped the other way. Okay. So that's working. So the next question is, if I grab that's aligned. So yeah, all of the touch stuff works reliably so long as an external display isn't plugged in. I'm gonna have to give that some thought. Tell you what, let's try this. Let's turn off the display scaler, which is now off, and we'll plug HDMI back in. Let's back in. We'll tilt the display so that it goes one way and then the other, which will hopefully cause things to, you know, rotate and rotate back again. And yeah, it's off. I mean, I've grabbed that, but that's not because it's in the right place. Where this finger is actually where the mouse cursor is. And it's doing what I observed the other day, where it drifts. So yeah, with the HDMI plugged in, the coordinate for the touch is off. And now I've disconnected. I imagine that if I rotate and rotate back, that should apply all of the correct transforms. Yeah, and now it works. If I put that down there and let go and pick it up from there, yeah, that all works. So the touch is off when HDMI is connected. And I suspect that all of my touch related issues. So let's try this. Let's put that UDEV rule back. So let's plug HDMI in to do this. Let's bring up the capture. So what we'll do is we'll re-enable that UDEV rule and then disconnect the HDMI, reboot, and see if those two things work together. So I may need to, actually this is the better thing, what I'm going to do is shut this down. We'll shut this off and we'll then plug the USB back in, because the USB has the live session on it, and we'll be able to see if I was right about that race condition, or if it was just to do with the HDMI being connected and throwing off the touch coordinates. So we'll move this to the overhead view. We'll turn this back on. We'll then mash the magic button to boot off USB. There it is. We'll then go into the live session off the USB. So no HDMI connected. This is expected because the Plymouth rotation has the same issues as the Grub rotation. I could fix that by making a new Plymouth theme, but I'm not going to. There's only so much time available. So this is correctly orientated. It's also not scaled in the installer here. That's fine, because now what we can do is bring up, in fact, yeah, that's working. So I've just used my finger to tap the try Ubuntu MATE button, and everything was correctly orientated and the positional stuff was correct. So I should be able to start the installer by double clicking there, and it works. So I will have to just note that in the documentation that the touch, and you probably heard the sound then, that the touch is off if the HDMI is connected. I'll have to do some research on that. I'm not planning on fixing that for this image to go out. I'll release note it, but I wonder if that's a general issue with X. I'm going to guess it probably is. I'm almost certain it is, but I'll consult with some experts. Right then, so hey, Dev Donut, welcome to the stream. Thank you for stopping by. Programming with that music feels so hype. Awesome. We can actually do hype music. There are hype tracks as well. It's Streambeats, streambeats.com if you're interested. So, Charafu says, fractional scaling, it's impossible to do on Linux. Well, that's the conventional wisdom, but you know, the conventional wisdom is wrong. So Dev Donut says, the guy to be sudo power off. Yeah, right then. So, I'm pretty satisfied that that's an HDMI thing. So, I'm good with that. I'll tell you one thing I'm interested to have a look at. No, I can't. Actually, I won't do that now because it's out of scope. So, what have we learned? I don't need to fix anything, actually. That UDEV rule is fine. The issue is HDMI, so I don't need to change my code at all. So I was about to go and make a change here to disable that UDEV rule because we thought that that was the caused the problems, but it is not. So we'll leave UDEV alone. We'll leave all of this alone. We're going to call this good. So the image that I have here is in fact going to be the image that I release. So I'm not going to do that now because that requires me uploading a 3 GB file, which I'm not going to be doing whilst I'm streaming for obvious reasons. But I think I will put that image on the Ubuntu MATE website overnight, and then I can push the appropriate configuration to enable that download image to appear in the download page of Ubuntu MATE, and then I can subsequently inform, in air quotes, the internet, that is available for people to grab should they want to try it out on their new Pocket 3. And that will conclude image building for the GPD Pocket 3 and enables me to get onto the fun thing, which I will do on Friday, where I take a look at their KVM module for this device. I am really looking forward to taking a look at that. I wonder what we could do with that. I think I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to play some games. Last night I was doing race practice with some of the members of the Linux Gamecast community. Ven has organised a Trackmania Stadium Racing League, and they do race practice on a Tuesday and actual competitive racing on a Friday night. So I was with them last night, and there is a point to this that ties into the GPD Pocket 3. We were basically saying that game can run on anything. So what I'm going to do is see if I can run that game on the GPD Pocket 3, and I'll hook up a controller to it and, you know, see, well, how does it hold up? Because I love a bit of racing, and if you do, then you know, head over to, they're on Twitch, Linux Gamecast on Twitch, and linuxgamecast.org or .com, I don't know, but go to twitch.tv/linuxgamecast. You can see last night's stream, in fact, where I was practicing with them. I was terrible. I'm going to get absolutely skinned on Friday, but I had lots of fun. It was a good wheeze. In fact, maybe tomorrow night I'll take some time to do some race practice, so hopefully I don't suck the big one on Friday night. So I'll just catch up here. So Big Pod says it's not that impossible. It's more you need to tell Xorg some stuff. Exactly. Indeed, Xorg can be instructed to do it. In fact, it's not so complicated. You just need to know what to do. And Charafu, it never worked good for me, neither on GNOME or KDE. Yeah, so I'm manipulating XR&R directly as opposed to going through the DE. So I'm actually manipulating the display configuration directly, and it works really well. The trick is, don't apply scaling to the display. Pick discrete screens and apply it that way. In fact, based on what I've learned doing this, I'm considering making an app for Ubuntu MATE to do this. I don't think I'll get it done by 2204, but I think like a multi-screen scaling configurator might be something that some people would be interested in. Really pretty much exclusively for laptop users, but then again, so many Linux users are indeed using laptops. Yeah, and Wayland has a more elegant solution for this, of course, because each screen is discretely managed by the display server. So, you know, fractional scaling per screen is, you know, a feature of the display server. And Malphabeth says, you are one of the maintainers for Ubuntu MATE. Yes, I am the lead developer, if you like, for Ubuntu MATE. I've led that. I founded Ubuntu MATE. I've been leading it for 7 years now, and until recently also worked at Canonical, and I was on the desktop team there. I was engineering director for Ubuntu Desktop, but about a year ago I left, and I do container tech now. So if you do anything with Docker or Kubernetes or making containers, then myself and Big Pod, who's in the chat here, we both work at Slim AI, and we have a Twitch channel, Slim DevOps, and tomorrow we will be streaming over there, and we're going to be looking at multi-service containers with Docker Compose. And Big Pod's also on the Ubuntu MATE team as well. So yeah, so if you like a bit of Linux, this is a good place to be. We've got a Discord server with about 2,000 Linux enthusiasts in it, so feel free to join us there. I'll just type that in, so it's wimpysworld.io/discord. Feel free to come and join there if you've got questions, or you want to be among like-minded people, then that's a good place to come. Nice one with the Chelsea cucumber as well. So that's a meme of the channel because of Ubuntu MATE, the green in Ubuntu MATE. The name of that green is Chelsea cucumber, hence the animation that you saw earlier. So, Dammy Killer says, I've just redone my Docker setup on my Pi 4 today. Oh, super cool. Fun stuff. Had stuff set up with Portainer before and moved to Docker Compose. Very good. How did you? So this is not your first time round setting up containers and what have you on the Raspberry Pi, I take it, by the base of that. So Charafu says, speaking of containers, NixOS stream when? Well, actually, it may happen. That stream may happen over on Slim DevOps, to be fair. So I've been talking to a couple of the developers at NixOS, and my first streams about NixOS will be over at Slim DevOps. So if you're interested in that, then give a follow to Slim DevOps on Twitch, because we will be having them on to talk all things Nix, and in particular, like how do you build your containers using Nix and get them into production, because among container enthusiasts, Nix is growing in popularity as like the platform to use for actual like container orchestration. Well, not orchestration, creation. So, Damn Killer says, just going to use Portainer to monitor stuff. Okay. What about Podman? Have you experimented with Podman at all? And yeah, Big Pod's a big Kubernetes user. In fact, you and I need to catch up on that. I need to brush up on Kate's. So, Dammy Killer says, yeah, they've played around with a few times now, definitely getting the grasp of things. Excellent. So, Dammy Killer, you might want to give Slim DevOps a follow too. It sounds like what we do over there will be of interest to you. I'm a huge Raspberry Pi fan, and I'm planning to do some stuff with Raspberry Pis and containers, because there are some luminaries in the Docker and container community that have never experimented with Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to bring them over with their experience to do sort of next level stuff on the container side, but I'm then going to introduce them to Raspberry Pi, so it'll be sort of this fusion of stuff. Yeah, so MDog says that Amazon seemed to be sold out of Pis. Yeah, well, it would just come out the other side of Christmas, and that often happens this time of year, that supply gets exhausted. Well, Big Pod, maybe you and I should take a look at that then. Maybe, I'll tell you what, I'll send one to you. We'll do that. I'll send you a Raspberry Pi 4, and then you and I can cook something up. Something container, Kate's, something on Pi 4. We'll do that. Right, okay then. So, have I got to fix anything? No, I'm just double checking mentally. I think that image is good to go. We'll keep that. So overnight I'll have that uploading to the Ubuntu MATE servers, and then that will get out. So my next steps will be playing with the GPD Pocket modules on Friday, and then after that I have all the other GPD devices, every single one of them, except one. I'll get back to that in a moment. So I think I'm going to quickly, next week, in a couple of streams, get all of those out, respin updated images for each of those, because I've learnt a few things along the way updating this device, and get new images for all of them made as well. So that's the Pocket 2, the Micro PC, the WinMax, the Win 2, the Topjoy Falcon, and something else. And the one that I don't have is the GPD Win 3, which I have very cheekily asked if they have an engineering sample they can send to me, because I would like to get that one working, and that's a handheld games console. So think, it's not quite a Steam Deck, but think Steam Deck, but it's got a slider keyboard underneath the screen. And learning what I've learned about accelerometers, I think that'd be a fun device to work on. So I want to have a crack at that one. Yeah, so actually Big Pod, that multi-container slimming stuff, I do want your help with that. I'll speak to you tomorrow about that. Totally do need a hand if you're able. So what's this? Engineering sample, nice phrase. Not my phrase, that's what they're known as. In fact, it even says so on the customs slip, engineering sample. Multi-state, so Afro Senpai, multi-container slimming stuff. Yes, so I myself and Big Pod, who's in the chat here, we both work for Slim AI. We're a container tech company. Our company is the commercial sponsor of Docker Slim, an open source tool to minify containers. So it will strip out everything that your runtime doesn't need, and it can minify containers by 10 to 30 times. But what we're going, and that's easy to demonstrate with single container images. But what we're working on is a series at the moment, splitting. We've written an app, and now we're breaking that app into a multi-container architecture. So a front end, a back end, database server. So simple, but broken up with a single Docker Compose file to define that logical whole. And then we're going to demonstrate how you minify that collection of containers defined by that one Docker Compose. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, do head over to twitch.tv/slimdevops. Give us a follow there. Tomorrow evening, so about 18 hours from now, we'll be doing a stream over there, which will be the second in that series of doing multi-service container slimming. So the one tomorrow, I think, is mostly going to be about how we split the app up into its constituent parts. Last week we wrote our front end, and this week we're going to be explaining how we separate them all out. So that's what we do over there. Similar sort of vibe, and similar group of people who join in over there. So yeah, if that sounds like something you enjoy, please do give us a follow. And because apart from anything, we really love to hear the experiences of other people who work with container technology, and sort of learn from their experiences and see what we can improve in our software based on the feedback we get from other developers. So, very keen to hear from other people. No, we don't support a subset. In fact, Big Pod can answer those questions better than me, because he's currently been working through updating all of the documentations and examples that we have for Docker Slim for the various, popular languages and what have you. But no, not limited. Pretty much anything, but it's well suited to web apps. It's well suited to web apps. So Big Pod, I won't ask you to come into a public place because I know you've not been well. But I will be asking for some assistance. So Charafu says, some people get angry when someone says Docker containers are OCI containers. Well, yes, that's Linux versus GNU/Linux, isn't it? We could just say containers. I realise that there's some sort of fractures in the container community, but you know, it is what it is. It's rare. It's rare that a container wasn't created using Docker, even if these days Docker isn't the runtime. Right. So Afro Senpai, definitely head over to Slim DevOps. You sound like somebody we could have interesting discussions with for sure, and learn something from. And maybe you might learn something from, if not me, then some of my better educated colleagues. Right. Okay. Just having a little look at the situation with my space on the server, on the Ubuntu MATE server. I am going to have to do something about block storage on that VPS at some point. You can imagine these container images, these OS images. They're burning up some storage, so I might have to shuffle things around a little bit later. Oh!
Thank you for the follow, Ordinary Boy 98.
Well, thank you very much for the follow, Ordinary Boy. I appreciate that. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. Right, let's just think. I think that's a bow on the GPD Pocket 3 from hardware enablement point of view. I'm pleased about that. That was a little bit alarming when it didn't work at the outset, but I'm glad we understand why now, what the underlying issue is. So I need to update those. In fact, I'll do that now. That will take but a second. So save forgetting to do it. Let's go over here. We've got a known issues section. Known issues. Let's go here. When the HDMI, when a HDMI display is connected.
Thank you for the follow, Afro Senpai.
Thank you, Afro Senpai. I appreciate that. When the HDMI display is connected, the touch coordinates on the internal display are incorrect, and that is now in there. So let's just flip over to the Git Kraken, and what have we got outstanding here? Is it just that? So we'll update that. We'll just get that, update the README. That will do very nicely. Okay. So, this is what we'll be looking at next. Ah, yes. I've just thought of something else we should look at. Which is, did I turn this off? No, I didn't. Good, well done. Good, well done. So let's tip you on your side. Okay, so that's rotating still. So that wakes up and does the right thing too. I hadn't actually tested that. So this is with my stylus now. Because what I hadn't tested is if I can use the stylus to do things here. Yes, I can. Okay, good. Let's do quit. Oh, I changed language. Ah. Oh, right, because I have to... Yeah, okay, so this is a curious thing, right? So that should be working now. Yeah, it is. So I can now choose English. So this is a powered pen, and what happens is it doesn't register a device until it comes within proximity, and you can see now maybe that even though I'm not touching the screen, it can move the mouse from a distance. Until that proximity happens, this device, or rather the sensor for the device, isn't registered on the system. It is dynamically created, and until that time, all of this orientation switching and the digitizer transformations don't affect. So you have to make the proximity happen, and then you have to go through one, orientation change for everything to be aligned correctly. But this is running off the live media, and that works, and that was the last thing I realized I hadn't tested. Wanted to make sure worked in the live session, which it does, so that's good. So how long have I been streaming for? Nearly 2 hours. This has been on, not doing very much admittedly, but it's been on the whole time, and it's saying 4 hours remaining. So what's that in percentage terms? %60. Okay. Not an accurate test because it's not really been doing a whole lot. Do you want to quit the installation? Yes, we do, because we don't want to install. We have an install, so we'll shut that down. Anyway, that was an aside because I'd forgotten that this is actually the thing that I'm excited about looking at next. So we'll be opening. Oh, please do shut down. Let's try and do it. And there we go. Look at this. We'll actually, if I can touch the screen accurately, do it all with fingers. That's good. So this device here, as I said earlier, has this module in the back here. So on Friday, I'll be pulling that out, and we will take a look at this one here. And I need some suggestions on how best to experiment with this. Oh, it's a bit of a tight fit in the bag here. Come on. Out you come. There we go. So this is the one that we'll be looking at, and this has HDMI in and USB-C in, and this is a KVM module, so that will sit in the back there, and we could then plug well, any device in that has HDMI out and USB-C out for keyboard and mouse. So I'm thinking, where are they? Here we go. I'm thinking this could be a candidate. So this is a Raspberry Pi 4 4GB, which has USB-C out for keyboard and mouse, and HDMI. So I think we can connect this Raspberry Pi to this KVM in here, and then the GPD, I can use the keyboard and mouse, and the internal display will then drive this Raspberry Pi. So that's what I want to have a play at as my first test, and then I want to have a think about what interesting things could I do with OBS with such a device. Because my understanding is, I've not actually tested this yet, but my understanding is this basically presents as a UVC webcam. So it just shows up in OBS as a regular video for Linux 2 device, and the magic on here just handles the hardware switching of USB to the keyboard and trackpad on the GPD. So that's the thing I'm most interested in looking at. but I also want to try and play games on it because it looks like it's got quite decent performance. So I'm interested to see, well, how good could this be? My new laptop. You know, there was a time when I used to travel regularly, but you know, those days have long since ended. But when they return, I wonder if this would be a viable laptop, because I programmed using the keyboard last night and I thoroughly enjoyed using it. So this is a much smaller form factor. So that's what I would like this computer to become, my new go-to. Also, I've got an FPGA project up there. I'd like to hook this up to that as well to configure the FPGA machine that I'm working on. Oops. So I see there's some new people. Hello, Forgotten Magnetic Snake. Welcome back. How you doing? It's been a while since you've been around here. Hello, Eric. Welcome back, you. Eric is our podcast, by the way. Another great Twitch channel. If you've ever wanted to know anything useful, meaningful, or insightful about data science, analytics, the R language, and Shiny apps, which is web apps for the R language, then our podcast on Twitch and Eric are your go-to destination. Right, okay then, let's take a look. Right then. So I was talking about an FPGA machine. The FPGA machine in question is a fully FPGA implementation of the Commodore 64. You might be able to make out behind me that case. You can probably see the bread bin, behind the bread bin, Commodore 64, the VIC-20 next to it, and you can see there is the box for the My 64 as well. So bit of a Commodore 64, well, yeah, VIC-20 was my first computer. Commodore 64 was the one that I fell in love with. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm working on an FPGA implementation. I have got another machine that I built. I built my own Commodore 64, a new Commodore 64, but I built it myself. But what I thought we'd do is we'd head over to a channel. They don't know me, I know them. It's Hazemaker 64. It's a Commodore 64 channel. So a little bit of retro gaming stuff. They also do some programming stuff over there. So I thought we'd head over there, give them a raid. So thank you very much for those of you that stopped by. Good to see you all. Thank you very much for the follow vision for all.
Follow vision for all.
Let's head over to Hazemaker, and hopefully I will see you on Friday for a stream, and I'll be streaming on Linux Gamecast on Friday night as well. So thanks very much for stopping by. See you all soon.